welcome to Scenic 3D. Today I'm going to show you how simple it is through the few easy steps using the Scenic 3D point motor installation jigs. The small jigs, they come for all gauges. That's the O, O, N and TT. I have done some for other gauges which are specials, which are just variants of the existing ones. They are also designed to fit specific points. Some gauges have specific ones, like the TT for instance, the Pico ones. The holes for the point motor, where the point motor goes through the tie bar, is on the edges, like on the N gauge points, whereas on the Hornby TT points it's in the centre. So we have a jig for both. I'll go through using one of the jigs and I'll explain all the steps as we go along, but what I will say is that the installation, the use of them to install the point motors is virtually the same for any type of point. There's only one exception, and that's in some cases where you sit the jig on top of the track, on top of the points, to show you where the hole fixing holes for the point motors are. You can't drill through the baseboard for those fixing points because they're directly in line with the track themselves. So what I've done there is that it's a two-part jig. So you get a jig on the top giving you some holes which are well out of the way of the track, and then you've got a second jig underneath which gives you those holes which line up with the ones you've just drilled, and you fix the jig underneath the layout, and then you've got the markings then for the pilot holes for the motors on the second jig underneath. It sounds a bit complicated, but it really isn't. It's so simple. But what I'll do is I'll move the camera down and I'll show you what it's all about. Right, what I've got here is the jigs. I've only got three here at the moment to show you. They all come colour coded. Anything that's blue is for DCC cobalt motors, or the analog cobalt motors. The green is for Tortoise. They also do the Smale, and the MTB, I believe it's the number 10, so the MP10, which is the direct replacement for Tortoise, but in the MTB motors, so that will fit that. The Seep motors are orange, and there's also red ones which are for Pico Twistlock motors, and there are the yellow ones for the MP1, 4 and 5. One of them is I can't remember which number it is obsolete now, but the MP motors. And I do believe, I think there's another one, I don't know what number it is, I'll have to look it up and put it in the information at the end, is a direct replacement for the DCC Concepts, but it also uses the same footprint as the ones with the yellow jigs, which is like for the MP1, 4 and 5. So basically what we have is, in this example, this is a demonstration board which I take to exhibitions and shows where I've got my stall. We have here some 00 gauge single points, and what I'll do is I'll demonstrate fitting a jig to those. So for argument's sake we're going to use the Tortoise motor. Now the Tortoise motor, if you line that up with the hole in the tie bar to operate on there is basically it can go this way round or it can go that way round, and in some cases you have obstacles underneath your baseboard like a support and you can't get it, or if you've got like 2 points back to back, you wouldn't be able to have both of them like that because they'd interfere with each other. So you'd have to have at least one there and one in the other way for the other point motor, or both facing that way. So what you've got is, like I say, this is the green universal Tortoise jig, and basically you line the jig so it sits with the two rails, that's moving rails, centered basically, and that will sit central there, and this center hole here you can see straight down the center of the tie bar, and it's in line with that center line. So this will fit, this universal one will fit a single left or right. It will also do a curved point left or right, and you can either fit it this direction or you can fit it in that direction. There's no forcing of the jig. It's just got to sit there. It doesn't really matter if these aren't centered, because once this is sat square on the track, these holes here, which denote the fixing points for that, are centered to the track anyway. Once you've got the jig where you want it, and what I'll do is I'll put it on this side. So that's your position, and what I'll do is I'll move the camera down so we get a sort of bird's eye view of it. So there we are, this is now in place. So what we have to do now is we get our drill of choice, and this is just a cheap Dremel type drill, and I've got a 1mm drill bit in here. Let's get it in shot. There we are, 1mm drill bit in there. Anything between a 1 and a 2mm. Bearing in mind that this will be the pilot holes for the drills, for the screws that you use to fit your motor, so you don't want to go too big. That just goes down and drills the holes, which are those four there. Now you will notice I've got two holes here, and that's where I've drilled them just to demonstrate a different point motor, so just for now we'll ignore those two. But what I'll do is I'll show you another jig in place. So basically that's the end of using the jig as such. I'm not going to lie underneath, go on the floor and lie underneath this board. This is just a small demonstration board. So what I'll do is I'll just flip it over and show you the underside. And basically, let's get it more in shot. We have these four holes. What you do then is you gauge this to go into the hole in the tie bar. and then when you sit that down, you are actually lined up with the motor. As usual, I'm not prepared, so I have got some here of screws. You would be using the existing screws that comes with the point motor, any fixing, and really from this point on you only really need to follow the instructions of fitting the point motor that you get with the manufacturer of the point motor. So I'll just put two screws in there just to hold it in place. Should use a better screwdriver, to be honest. So, having fixed your point motor now in place, it's all ready, and as you get back from underneath the layout, what you've got, and I'll zoom in, let's see, and that's the point motor fitted. The wire on this one is a little bit on the thin side. I don't know if it's right, and I don't know if the motor is set one way or the other, but it's central over these, and you can see that this is where the motor is being fitted from. All that you need to do now is shave off and cut off the piece that's sticking out, because you don't want it catching on the locos going over. And that's basically the use of those jigs. What I'll do now is I'll disconnect that motor, take it off, and I'll show you another jig. So yeah, what we've got is we've got a seat motor and we've got a seat motor jig, and basically we all know these move around very easily, and when we're up on our back underneath, trying to keep that straight is a bit of a task when you're trying to push it up through the hole. So there's another thing that you can get from Scenic 3D, and that is the clip, the centering clip. And basically what you do is you line up the back end of that into that little hole there, push that over, and that clip sits on there, and it stops that from sliding up and down. It's very sturdy, and it will hold that while you're fitting your point motor. So that's another item. So basically this is your jig, and you can fit that there just the same as you did with the green one. In this case it doesn't matter if you go that way round or that way round. There is a wider end that way, and that is if you've got like a short point, a small point where this curve is generated very close to the tie bar, then you might need to put that with that edge over to that side of the points. But what we'll do, we'll just put that in position, and that sits nicely there, centered on the track. And in just the same way you'd be drilling down and going through the baseboard into those holes, which are those two holes there. And then when you go underneath, that just goes through the tie bar, and the holes that are in the circuit board for fixing line up with the holes there. the use of the jig is the same for any type of jig that I've got, and like I say, the only exception is in a two-part jig where you can't drill through because you'll be hitting the track. So that's the only differences. There are jigs for three-way points, and that is the symmetrical three-way points, which is like a fan of three tracks. There is the asymmetrical, where you've got it going one way there, and then a bit further down it goes there. So the two sets of points are offset from each other. There's double slip, and that will also do the single slip as well. And on the end gauge there is a jig for the Pico scissor jig. So you've got like 4 sets, and it doesn't do all 4 at the same time. It just does one end and then you turn it around and do the other end. All of the jigs come packaged, and in the package is a full set of instructions with pictures showing you how they work. So it's quite easy to follow the steps. Some of the pictures are generic and not specific to that particular jig or set of points, that point motor you're using, but it just means that it's exactly the same whichever point motor, so there's no specific for that particular point motor. Also, there's contact details on there, so you can contact me at any time to speak about all these and find out more if you don't already know. There has been a couple of other people do demonstrations of these point motor jigs, namely Charlie Bishop at Chadwick Model Railway. He's done quite a few. He's got the Tortoise motors and he's used them and he's found them quite useful. I think one of the things he did say to me, he wished he'd known about them a long time before, because he spent many an hour on his back, and I've seen plenty of his videos where he's tried laying on his back between the two levels of his layout. So basically it doesn't really matter whether you've got the end gauge, which is there, you've got the TT gauge, and that's a Hornby TT point, and like I mentioned before, the hole in the Hornby TT point, I'll use a screwdriver to the pointer, is there in the centre. If you've got the Pico, it's there. Okay, there we are. You go there and there. So there's a different jig if you're using the TT Pico track or the TT Hornby track, and that's the only difference. Right, for the next part, I've been asked if there are jigs for the old style solenoids, and the answer quite simply is no, there is no jig for that specifically. What I do have, I don't think I've got one in this little box here, is I've got a version that I print of the standard plate that these motors fit to. I think the serial number for the Pico version is the PL9. What I do is I sell what I call the super easy mount for the PL. I think this is a PL10 or something, is it? Or a PL1. I can't remember the number of this motor now. but for this type of motor it's what I call the super easy mounting plate, which is longer than the Pico version, and the holes in it go the same direction. On the Pico, one goes in that direction and one goes in that direction. Mine both go laterally, and they are longer, so when you do fit it manually from underneath on your back without having to use a jig, you have got lateral movement to centre it. What you haven't got is you haven't got the ability to know that you are square with the track when you're working from underneath, because when you're working from underneath you can't see the track and you can't see the line of the track unless you've got a series of pins coming through where you've pinned the track down and you can gauge it from there. So what I've got in its place of a jig is a conversion plate, and this is the conversion plate for either the Seep or the Twistlock. I also do a conversion plate for the DCC Concepts and the Tortoise. Now basically it is quite common for people to have the Seep and this type of point motor. So they have both solenoids, and they basically work and they're wired in almost exactly the same way. So what you've got is you've got your jig for, say, a Seep motor, because you've been fitting Seep motors, but you've got a few of these and you want to fit more of these. So basically you use your Seep jig, and then when you get underneath on here, let's see if I can get it close up, you can see there's 4 holes. 2 are marked with a T and 2 are marked with an S. Basically the T is if you've used a Twistlock jig, and the S is if you've used a Seep jig. Now on the other conversion plate there are holes marked D. There's 2 marked D, there's 2 marked T, and there's 1 marked C. The C is a common, and basically that is just one to stop it from moving around. What you do with that one is that if you're using a DCC Concepts jig at the top and you've got some of these, then you use the holes marked D, and there'll be two holes in sort of that position marked D. And equally, if you're using the Twistlock, the Tortoise jig, the green one, then you'd have 2 holes marked in T. A lot of this becomes very easy to understand once you've got one of these in your hands and you've seen it for yourself. So basically these motors fit onto these conversion plates in exactly the same way they would do on a PL9 on a mounting plate, but then all you've got is the ability to line it up with the markings of one of the jigs that are fit anyway. So there are 5 of these in a pack, and the screws to mount them, and all you do then is that you've got your motors, and then you mount them to these plates and fit them underneath where you would have normally have fitted. And in some cases you might have a Seep jig that's failed, but you might have a pack of some of these. So what you do is you use this mounting plate and fit it to where you normally would have fitted the Seep jig. So that's to use those. And lastly, I'll address the point. Address the point. That's pun not intended. Pico have added a range of points called Unifrog. I've been around a while, but I haven't got any Unifrog points with me. Basically this is just a normal Pico point. It's the older version, and the newer version has more detail around the tie bar area. So what I've started to do, I've modified the jigs where this is more of a cutout in the centre to accommodate that. If you've got the existing jigs, or you end up having stock, a jig from the stock that hasn't been updated yet, and then you've bought a new jig, it will still work, but it won't. Don't try and force it down. It will just stand a millimetre or two proud. It won't sit down as tight as what it would do if it had the new modern cutouts. But virtually all of the new ones now that are coming out have the cutout to actually, and there is the cutout, which will accommodate the new Pico Unifrog points. And the only other thing I know about at the moment, which is feedback from customers, is that if you have a Unifrog double slip, the distance between the two sets of tie bars is shorter on the Unifrog. I haven't verified that, but I'm just going by what the customer's feedback is, because he has got a set of the old Electrofrog and a set of the Unifrog, and he said basically that the Unifrog is the centres are slightly less. It's only a couple of millimetres, but you can't just sit the jig down and do all the holes that you need to do. What you have to do is do the one end while it's lined up with the tie bar, and then just move it a few millimetres and then do the other end. So it's no great problem. It's just thinking about what you're doing first, and it doesn't need a replacement jig. It will be doing it. I have thought about a second jig, but at the end of the day, the existing jig will work, and all you just need to know is that you just go and move it for doing the second lot of holes. Equally, I could redesign it and just say, well, you use it on that half. It's only a smaller jig, it will only do that half, and then what you do is you take it off, you turn it around and you put it on that half, and then do that one separately. I haven't yet decided, but watch this space. There is another point, and that's the Y-shaped point in double O, and the jigs will actually work on that. The only thing is, and I've done it on this one, this is a new one in the packet, and I don't know if you can see, but there are two small ribs there and there, and what they do is they sit in between these at the right place, just to help it keep it centered. When you're fitting to one of these points, because of the way that they move out and how close they are, these are in the way, and if you can see, I've just took a modelling knife to it, a craft knife, just break them off, cut them away. They will still work with your existing points. I haven't yet redesigned it and reprinted it. I print a lot of stock at any one given time, so I have got a fair amount of these in stock now, so I won't be changing soon, and I just haven't had time to do a redesign to have them without that. But when I decide to, then they'll be without that, and then they'll fit these points without any modification. But if you need to fit them on those points, they'll fit like that. And equally, if that was mounted there and you put the jig in that direction, it would still, the motor would still operate your points in that fashion, and there is no need to modify the jig anyway because it's facing a different direction. Well, I hope that's made it a little bit more simpler and got rid of the mud out of the clouds. So if you need any further information, all the details are on my website on scenic3d.co.uk, and you can contact me direct from that website. It also does give you all my contact details, so let me know if you've got a problem or what you need, or if there is in fact something that I haven't got. But please do check out the website where you can check out what jigs are available. Although if you do turn around to me and say, well, have you got a jig for this and this and this, what I'll do is I'll send you the links. It's quite easy, it's quite simple, it takes seconds to do, so I'm open for that at any time. Equally, talking about the website, if you do go onto the scenic3d.co.uk store website, please think about subscribing to the emails. I don't bombard people with emails several times a month. Sometimes in a month you won't get any, but what you do get from time to time is you will get offers. Now, these offers range from a percentage off the whole of your shopping that you do on the website, so it's always a good thing, because sometimes the offers are only open to email subscribers. It's not to try and entice you into it, it's just that people who are interested and want to subscribe to the emails will get preferential treatment. Equally, when I go to the shows, I give a 10% discount on your shopping basket when you buy 3 or more items, and that's at every show that I attend. What I will start is I will be sending out emails to anybody who has subscribed prior to a show and for the duration of the show, and a couple of days before and a couple of days after maybe. There'll be an offer where if you can't make the show, I don't want you to miss out, so I shall be giving that offer of 10% discount on your shopping basket when you shop on the site if you're an email subscriber. So consider that, and hopefully I'll see you somewhere at one of the shows. So goodbye for now.